If you like this story, please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the next exciting stories. And now let's enjoy the story. The sun dipped low over the Arizona desert, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement as Jack Reynolds stepped out of his dusty pickup truck. A veteran of 2 tours in Afghanistan, Jack was no stranger to the weight of loss, but today felt heavier. He tugged his cap low over his brow and gazed at the small, run-down animal shelter before him. It was his sister Emily who had suggested this trip, convinced it would help him find some semblance of peace. "A dog might help you heal," she had said, her voice laced with concern. Jack doubted it. There was only one dog that could fill the void in his life, and Rex, his loyal war dog, was gone. After an ambush during their last mission together, Rex had been retired and sent to a civilian care program. Jack had fought to keep him, but bureaucracy and regulations had won out. Now, years later, the thought of meeting another dog felt like a betrayal. But something about Emily's insistence had drawn him here. Inside the shelter, the air was thick with the mingled scents of disinfectant and damp fur. Rows of cages lined the walls, each one holding dogs of various sizes and breeds. Some barked eagerly, others cowered in silence. Jack's boots echoed on the concrete floor as he followed a young shelter worker through the maze of kennels. "We've got a German shepherd in the back," the worker said. "Came in a few weeks ago. He's a bit difficult." Jack's ears perked up at the mention of the breed. "What do you mean, difficult?" The worker hesitated, glancing over her shoulder. "He doesn't trust people, won't let anyone near him without growling or snapping. But he's been through a lot, poor thing. We're still trying to piece together his history." Jack followed her to the last kennel in the row. Inside, lying in the far corner, was a large German shepherd. His fur was matted, his body lean with visible scars. His ears twitched at the sound of their approach, but he didn't lift his head. When Jack crouched down to get a better look, his breath caught in his throat. "Rex," he whispered. The dog's ears perked up slightly and his amber eyes flicked toward Jack, but there was no recognition in them, no spark of familiarity. Rex's gaze was cold, guarded, as if he were looking at a stranger. "You know him?" the shelter worker asked, surprised. Jack nodded slowly, his voice tight. "He was my partner, my best friend." The worker's face softened. "I had no idea. He's been so closed off. Maybe he'll remember you if you spend some time together." Jack stood and took a shaky breath. "Yeah, let's try that." The shelter's small play yard was surrounded by a chain-link fence, the ground littered with tufts of grass and patches of dirt. Rex stood stiffly on one side, his eyes darting around as if searching for an escape. Jack sat on the other side, his hands resting on his knees. "Hey, buddy," Jack said softly. "It's me. It's Jack." Rex didn't move. His tail hung low, his body tense. Jack reached into his pocket and pulled out a tennis ball, one of Rex's favorite toys from their time in the field. He rolled it gently across the ground, stopping a few feet from the dog. Rex glanced at the ball, then back at Jack, but didn't budge. The shelter worker watched from a distance, her expression a mix of hope and pity. "It might take time," she said gently. Jack nodded, though his heart sank. "I'll take him home," he said suddenly. The worker blinked. "Are you sure? He's not an easy dog to handle." Jack's jaw tightened. "I'm sure he's my responsibility." The drive home was silent. Rex lay in the back seat, his body rigid, his eyes fixed on the passing scenery. Jack glanced at him through the rearview mirror, his mind racing with memories of their time together. The ambush, the shrapnel wounds, the long nights in the desert. And now this. It felt like they were strangers. When they arrived at Jack's small house on the outskirts of town, Rex hesitated at the truck's open door. Jack gave him space, stepping back and letting the dog make the decision. Slowly, cautiously, Rex jumped down and sniffed the air. His movements were deliberate, as if every step was a calculated risk. Jack had prepared a corner of the living room for Rex, complete with a new bed, bowls, and a few toys. But Rex ignored them, instead retreating to a spot by the front door where he could keep an eye on everything. Jack sighed and left him alone, knowing better than to push. That night, Jack left his bedroom door open, hoping Rex would feel safe enough to come closer. As he lay in bed staring at the ceiling, he heard the soft sound of paws on the floor. Rex didn't come into the room but lay down in the hallway, a silent sentinel. Jack smiled to himself in the dark. It was a small step, but it was something. Over the next few weeks, Jack and Rex settled into a cautious routine. Jack tried everything to spark some memory in the dog: commands, old toys, even the scent of his worn military vest. But Rex remained distant, his eyes always guarded. One afternoon, Jack found himself sitting on the porch, the old vest in his lap. "You saved my life more times than I can count," he said aloud, though Rex was lying several feet away, seemingly uninterested. "I'm not giving up on you, buddy. Not now, not ever." As if in response, Rex lifted his head slightly, his ears twitching. Jack froze, his heart racing. For a moment, he thought he saw a flicker of recognition in the dog's eyes. But then it was gone, replaced by the same wary distance. "We'll get there," Jack murmured. "We have to." The breakthrough came on a stormy night. Thunder rumbled in the distance, and rain lashed against the windows. Jack was in the living room, sorting through a box of old mementos, when he heard a low whine. He turned to see Rex standing at the edge of the room, his body tense, but his eyes filled with something Jack hadn't seen before: vulnerability. "Hey, boy," Jack said softly, setting the box aside. "It's okay. Come here." Rex hesitated, then took a tentative step forward. And then another. Jack stayed still, his heart pounding as the dog closed the distance between them. Finally, Rex rested his head against Jack's knee, letting out a heavy sigh. Jack's throat tightened as he gently placed a hand on Rex's head. "That's it," he whispered. "We're okay now." For the first time in years, Jack felt a glimmer of hope. The wall between them wasn't gone, but it was cracking, and he would do whatever it took to bring it down completely. Later that week, Jack woke to a startling sound: Rex barking. It was the first time since they had reunited that Rex had made such a noise. Jack rushed to the living room to find Rex standing rigidly by the front door, growling at something outside. Jack cautiously peeked through the curtain but saw nothing unusual. The incident triggered a flood of memories. Jack sat on the floor beside Rex, stroking his fur. "You used to wake me up like that in the field," he said softly, "always keeping me safe." Rex slowly leaned into Jack's touch, his body relaxing for the first time in weeks. It was a breakthrough moment, one that solidified Jack's determination to bring his partner back fully. Just as things were improving, Jack received a call from the animal shelter. They had found records indicating that Rex's previous caretaker, a man with no military background, had subjected the dog to harsh treatment. The news infuriated Jack, but it also explained Rex's mistrust and fear. And determined to counteract the damage, Jack doubled down on their training routines, using positive reinforcement and patience. Some days were good, but others felt like they were back at square one. On one particularly difficult afternoon, Rex refused to respond to any commands and retreated to his corner. Jack sat on the floor, defeated. "You're not the only one who feels broken," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "But we're stronger together, remember?" Rex glanced at him, his eyes softening, and slowly approached. Jack's chest tightened as Rex placed his head on Jack's knee, a silent gesture of trust. The thunderstorm rolled in quickly, dark clouds swallowing the evening sky and casting Jack's small home in shadow. Rain lashed against the windows and the booming thunder shook the walls. Jack sat on the couch, holding the old military whistle in his hands, the weight of the moment pressing on him. He glanced at Rex, who lay in his usual spot near the front door. The German shepherd's ears twitched at each crack of thunder, his posture stiff. Jack exhaled, gripping the whistle tightly. "This is it, boy. If there's anything left of the old Rex, this storm will tell me." He stepped onto the porch, the wind tugging at his jacket as rain began to soak him. He stood under the dim porch light, raising the whistle to his lips. The familiar two short blows pierced through the storm, echoing into the night like a battle cry. Inside, Rex froze. His head shot up, ears fully erect, and his body stiffened. For a moment, nothing happened. Jack's heart sank, and he lowered the whistle, the cold rain dripping from his hair. But then Rex moved. The German shepherd sprang to his feet, his eyes wide with recognition. He bolted toward the door, hesitating for a brief moment before pushing through it into the storm. Jack stood frozen as Rex galloped through the rain, his powerful strides bringing him directly to Jack's side. The dog sat down, his posture rigid, his eyes locked on Jack's face. He let out a single bark, a clear signal. Jack dropped to his knees, tears mixing with the rain as he embraced Rex. "You remember," he choked out, his voice breaking. "You remember everything, don't you?" Rex leaned into Jack, his tail wagging for the first time since their reunion. The storm raged around them, but in that moment, neither man nor dog noticed. It was a moment of pure reconnection, the bond forged in war reigniting like a flame that had never truly gone out. The next morning, Jack woke to find Rex lying beside his bed, his head resting on Jack's boots. It was a sight that filled him with hope. But Jack knew their journey wasn't over. If anything, the hardest part was still ahead. Over the following days, Jack began pushing their training to new levels. He dusted off old drills, setting up obstacle courses in the yard and using commands they had once practiced daily. At first, Rex hesitated, his body language tense, as if unsure whether to trust himself. But Jack's encouragement never wavered. "Come on, buddy," Jack said during one session, holding a training dummy in his hands. "You've done this 100 times before. Show me you've still got it." Rex stared at the dummy, his muscles coiled like a spring. Then with a burst of energy, he lunged forward, grabbing the dummy with a force that startled Jack. Rex's grip was firm, his movements precise, just as they had been during missions. Jack laughed, a deep, hearty sound that hadn't escaped him in years. "That's my boy," he shouted, throwing his arms around Rex as the dog dropped the dummy and barked excitedly. But not every day was a victory. There were moments when Rex's anxiety returned with a vengeance. One afternoon, while practicing recall commands, a sudden loud noise from a passing truck sent Rex cowering into the corner of the yard, trembling uncontrollably. Jack knelt beside him, whispering softly, "It's okay, Rex. It's just us here. No one's going to hurt you." It took nearly an hour for Rex to calm down, and Jack's heart ached with every second. He realized the depth of Rex's trauma ran far deeper than he had imagined. But Jack wasn't just fighting for Rex, he was fighting for himself. Each step forward, no matter how small, reminded Jack that they were in this together. Months later, Jack decided it was time for the ultimate test, a return to the training field where their partnership had been forged. The old military base was now abandoned, its buildings weathered and overgrown, but Jack knew the layout like the back of his hand. He loaded Rex into the truck and drove out early one morning, the sunrise painting the horizon in shades of gold. As they arrived, Rex's body language changed. His ears perked up, and he sniffed the air with an intensity Jack hadn't seen in years. Something about the place seemed to resonate with him. Jack led him to the open training yard, where the remnants of obstacle courses and equipment still stood. "All right, partner," Jack said, kneeling in front of Rex. "This is where it all began. Let's see if we've still got it." He started with simple commands. Sit, stay, come. Rex performed them flawlessly. Jack then led him through the obstacle course, encouraging him every step of the way. Rex hesitated at the first hurdle, but soon began to navigate the course with the same agility and confidence he had displayed years ago. Jack felt his chest tighten with pride. "That's it, Rex. You've still got it, buddy." For the final challenge, Jack set up a scenario mimicking a mission, a hidden object that Rex needed to find and retrieve. Jack used a small pouch containing Rex's favorite ball, hiding it under an old crate at the far end of the field. He gave the command, "Search." Rex froze for a moment, his nose twitching. Then, like a switch had been flipped, he sprang into action. His movements were calculated, his nose to the ground as he zigzagged across the field. Jack watched in awe as Rex zeroed in on the crate, pawing at it and barking to signal the find. When Rex returned with the pouch in his mouth, Jack couldn't hold back his tears. He knelt down, embracing Rex tightly. "We're back, boy. We're really back." As they sat together in the field, the sun setting behind them, Jack felt a profound sense of peace. They had both been broken, their spirits scarred by war and loss, but together, they had found a way to heal. That evening, back at home, Jack sat on the porch with Rex by his side. He held the photograph of them from years ago, now placed in a new frame. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" Jack said, scratching Rex's ears. "But I'd do it all again if it meant having you back." Rex leaned into Jack, his tail wagging gently. Their journey had been long and filled with pain, but it had also brought them closer than ever. In that moment, Jack realized that they weren't just partners, they were survivors, proof that love and loyalty could overcome even the deepest wounds. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please support me by clicking the logo in the bottom right corner to subscribe to my channel. This way, you won't miss any of the exciting stories coming up. Thank you so much.